Well, a new poll from StimSight Research for Insider New Jersey shows a tightening race in New Jersey's gubernatorial contest, with Democrat Mikie Sherrill leading Republican Jack Ciattarelli by just 6 points. That's down from an 8-point lead in last week's FDU poll, with Governor Murphy's approval ratings slipping and the Democratic Party facing a brand problem among its own voters. What does this mean for the race? Joining us to break it down is Micah Rasmussen, who is the director of the Rebovich Institute for New Jersey Politics at Rider University. Good morning to you, Micah. Good to have you on today.
You too, Ken. It's been a little while. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you. You get me, of course, on a grumpy morning for me. Me grumpy with without my coffee. Yes, I'm very. They call me ranting old man. It's like I have the pants pulled up to my scratching.
We're going to move right past that. We've got some good stuff. We've got a competitive election. That's a good thing for New Jersey.
Yes,
right?
we do. Yeah. This is fascinating. So now we see the Democrats lost a few thousand registered voters. The Republicans picked up a few thousand, and a lot of hay was being made about that. But yet Democrats are still ahead by 869,000 votes in terms of registered members. The question is, are those 869,000 people motivated enough to come out and vote for Mikie Sherrill over Jack Ciattarelli, or will they just stay home?
That's a good question. When it comes to the registration numbers, I think the encouraging news for Democrats is that this has been a drip, drip, drip every month, where at the grassroots level, Republicans have been beating them out by just 1,000, 2,000 registration advantage over the Democrats statewide for most of Murphy's second term. And that is a trend that's been continuing. The ray of sunshine for the Democrats is that in the primary election, 80,000 Democrats came out, new Democrats registered to vote in the Democratic primary, registered as Democrats, about 40,000 on the Republican side. So this was a discontinuation of that monthly trend. In other words, they were motivated enough to come out and vote in the primary. So there is a sign of motivation there among those voters. Now, what happened this month, the month after the primary? A couple of thousand of them flipped back to unaffiliated. So we don't know how lasting it is, but we did see some signs of life coming from them in the primary.
Yeah, and then of course there's also the game that both sides love to play, and they encourage people who are not affiliated with the party to register just to vote in the primary, and then you can go back to being whatever who you are, right? So that does happen sometimes. Each state has its own rule about how far in advance you have to do that, but that happens in every case. I mean, I'm right this moment I'm in Florida, but notoriously it's happened here. I know. So the question then becomes with this survey, and this survey. I think this pollster, correct me if I'm wrong, the StimSight poll, isn't this the same? Isn't it being used by both organizations right now? Aren't they both using StimSight?
Well, Patrick Murray is a very trusted guy in polling.
Yeah.
He ran the Monmouth poll until earlier this year, when Monmouth decided to get out of the polling business, and he started his own firm. He is respected. He had a miss in the last election in the 2021 race. Jack Ciattarelli felt that that was something that was a real disadvantage for him, because it showed him further behind than he actually wound up. But I'll tell you this, between the Fairleigh Dickinson poll last week and Patrick Murray's poll this week, you can start to say with more confidence that as of this moment, at least, it appears to be a between a 6 and an 8 point advantage for Mikie Sherrill. There's, we like trends, we like consistency, so we can start to say that that's the case. I know you remember earlier there had been this real outlier poll from Rutgers Eagleton that said it's a 20-point race. That's out the window. We know that that's, an outlier. We see some consensus around this 6 to 8 point range, and we can say that at least of this moment, this snapshot at this point in time, that's where the race lies.
And I think the margin of error was about 3.7%. So this puts Mikie Sherrill in the lead. And let's just say one thing here is that these are two very good candidates. I mean, there is no debating. It is very hard if you are on the right. It is very hard to say, well, she's Mikie Sherrill is is very eminently qualified, and she has a lot of the boxes that people on the right like. She checks off a lot of them, and
People
that's what
like
makes
her
it very
bio.
challenging, right? Yep.
People like her bio, people like her background, they respond warmly to it. I agree with you. But, and I don't want to cut you off, but Jack Ciattarelli, very much the same thing. Sharp, crisp, all over the state, crisscrossing the state. You're not going to put him in a box either. And so I agree with you. Two very, very sharp candidates. And what you want to see is a competitive race. You want to see a race within striking distance. And that's what we seem to have at this point.
So one of the things that polls are showing, or this poll is showing, is the approval versus disapproval rate. So right now, Mikie Sherrill's approval versus disapproval is a little bit better than Jack Ciattarelli's approval versus disapproval. So there are a little bit more people disapprove of Ciattarelli than Mikie Sherrill. Is that because his name is a little more known throughout New Jersey because of the other gubernatorial attempts? And people already know who he is. They've seen his face. They've heard his ads, and that Mikie Sherrill, she may be known in northern New Jersey. In fact, she was in when I lived in North Caldwell. She was my representative. Well, now she's U.S. Congress, right? But she was my district back in the day. I don't live there anymore. I'm trying to tap dance around saying where I
Yeah.
live now.
Yeah.
But so could that very well be the case that because he is a little better known, people have more history with Jack Ciattarelli throughout the state, that maybe his
I think you
disapprovals
hit
are a
the
little higher?
I think you hit the nail on the head, Ken. I think it is the history. When you have run statewide before and you have been attacked before, there's been negative advertising about you before, that goes into everything that we know about you and we remember about you. Yes, Mikie Sherrill has been in the fray, but she has not been subject to massive amounts of negative advertising, attack ads, that kind of thing, either at the statewide level from the primary that she just ran in or in her congressional runs. So she's a little bit of a fresher face. You're right that Jack, with this being his third run for statewide office for the governor's seat, he has had three opponents or more if you count all the people who are running in the primary. And so that's more of an opportunity to remember some of the things that his opponents have said about him along the way. It's not a dramatic thing. It's not something that he can't overcome, but it's something he's got to deal with.
There's a phrase in Italy, by the way, and among Italians, when somebody runs for a third time, they say "il pane è vecchio." That means the bread is old, the bread is stale, and that's why I know that's why a lot of people in the primary were saying, "Hey, you know what? He already had two chances." And the question
That
is, will third time be the charm for him, or will people say, "You know what? We just blew an opportunity to go with somebody different"?
Well, that was the argument, as you say, that was made against him in the primary. It didn't work. He won the Republican primary in June very, very handily. He dispatched all of his opponents. He got over 60% of the vote. Really just a very, very commanding victory. 21 counties. He won in the counties that his opponents were supposed to have a foothold in, had support in. He won everywhere. And so you're right. Republicans rejected that idea that he's, a third time also ran, and they picked him anyway. And so we're going to see what happens here. I think I can probably say with some confidence that if he does win, that background, knowing him, being familiar with him, will have helped. I will say that, he's got a better familiarity among voters than if he was just running the first time. So that will have helped because it takes time in this compressed media environment. How do you break through? One of the ways you break through is you run more than once. If he does not win, I don't think we're going to be blaming the fact that he ran before. I think we're going to say that it was a tough environment because it was Trump's midterm environment. I think we're going to say massive Democratic advantage, that kind of thing. We'll look at those factors. I don't know that it's going to be because he ran before.
All right. Yeah, we'll see how much. That was another thing. If we had an hour, we would talk about the Trump factor and how much of this will be motivated anti-Trump voters versus motivated pro-Trump voters. That's a whole other discussion we can go into. And it
Absolutely.
seems that
Yeah.
the polarity just keeps growing and growing with that. I could talk to you and David Wildstein. If we sat down at a table together, we would grow old at that table. I don't think we'd ever leave it. So, before they yank me off the camera, I better end it right here. We'll get together again many times, my friend. Micah Rasmussen, director of the Rebovich Institute for New Jersey Politics at Rider University. As always, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Ken.